Good evening. This is Paula Percival, your co-host for The Ties That Bind. Thank you for tuning in. We are on another subject. We're going to tap into all the stuff that we've been talking about for the last 3 weeks here. And because I haven't actually posted them back on there because there's been so much going on. And so much, and we have a guest co-host on here with us. Her name is Danielle, and she can introduce herself, and we will go there with her because she's gonna introduce the youth part of what we're talking about today, because spirituality is something that really should be taught from the time that you're a baby till the time that you should be getting something. And then by the time you get to your teens, then you should be, you're questioning and you're asking God and you're doing all this stuff. And this is where we are. And when we start here, we want what I really want you all to know is this is not something spiritual. This is not about religion. This is not about what the world is saying. This is about something of who and what we are. And as a spiritual person, that we've been in this since we were young kids. The one that we have on here, our guest co-host, is another niece, and you all have not gotten. Let me do this. Let me let her introduce herself first, and then let James introduce himself, and then I'll let you know where we're going from here. Danielle.
Okay, great. Hi, so I'm Danielle Johnson. I am Aunt Paula's niece. And today I'm going to be speaking on my perspective of the youth and what we want, answering questions about spirituality, how where we kind of see ourselves in about 5 years. And I'm more speaking to my personal perspective. I've asked maybe one or two of my friends about some of the questions that we'll be talking about tonight as well, and I kind of have a little bit of their perspective. And I also kind of hope to hear what James and my aunt have to say as well.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. I like that aspect. And then we're going to go from there to James.
Hello, family. How you doing?
Hello.
I'm glad to be here again. Of course, you know that I'm here to use myself as a tool to bridge the gap between the differences that we have in our families and in our communities. I believe that one day we'll see that the problems that we have are actually more the same than different, and we can finally get a chance to come together.
Yes, and I agree with that. Of course, it seems like that we all agree on everything, but we really, what we're looking at is that we all have a different piece of the puzzle that someone else, because this ancient African spirituality that we've been talking about for the last 3 weeks. And before that, we were talking about, what was it, James, generational housing? And then before that,
family economics and all that stuff,
Yes. And so we were talking about, and this is part, because Tiffany is more of the strategic moderator. She is going to keep you on the line. She's going to keep it she's going to toe the row, as they call it back then. And how you make sure that those lines are straight. Tiffany is there. James is going to, and he's always been there since he was a little child. So what we're doing is I'm going to say this, is the gift that we know that we've had, we are expressing them. James has been this way since I've known him, since I met him. I like to say since I met him because it's a whole nother soul that's coming into another realm. And my belief is that, that's what the Bible says. If you believe in the Bible, we're not saying that the Bible is wrong. What we're saying is that the Bible is not complete. And there are scriptures in there that says if all the works of all these people had done, the world would not be able to hold it. So you have to take what you can and grow from there. And this is where we're going. And I'm saying this to Spearhead because we're going to be in different places. And so this is how you know that Miss Tiffany is not here tonight, because it would be XYZ 1, 2, 3. And so we're going to, because I'm the moderator, I will be everywhere. But hopefully you'll get something from this. And so what we started with was the reason that we invited Danielle in because of her perspective from the youth. And what was so funny, I was talking to her, she was just like, well, maybe I can do that on another, and I can talk about, and I was just like, you do realize that you are a youth. And then I remember that she was just like, as I was typing it to tell her this, I was just like, no, she doesn't know that she's a youth because she's been like a little old woman since she got here. All of our kids are the same. It's just these spirits. It's just these spirits. And we talk, and this is what we do. We are talkers. James, not so much, but he is honed on what he wants. I'm a talker forever. James is a talker when he's into things that are the spiritual part. That you have to know James. And a lot of times I say that, and I grew up with him, with he and Tiffany. I have to say that because I wasn't mature at that time myself. And so, but James has always been that one that you didn't know whether he was a rambunctious little boy. He saw everything. He went everywhere. But he noticed everything. He was the one that had his feelings, would always get hurt if you're not careful. You have to approach him gingerly. But I am getting to know him. And when I left, and I remember the last time I saw James, he was about a little stocky, chunky little boy. The next time I saw him, I was at my mom's house, and they were coming, he and his mom and his sister, they were coming down for something, and I can't remember what it was. I saw him, and I was just like, I hadn't seen him in so many years. This is so wonderful. This is so great, even though we talk on the phone all the time. And he went to get out the car, and he never stopped getting out the car. And so this is where we come and we talk about these things, because I didn't even realize that a lot of things, when they were silent, they were taking things in. And even though Danielle's been a little old woman since she was little, and she always, I remember her, what was hers, and if she chose to share it with you, you deem yourself blessed. I remember one time I was asking her for something, just joking around with her, and I said, Danielle, you're not going to give me any of your candy? Can you please give me some of your candy? And she was just like, all right. So she went, and when I say this, and it may sound like it's funny to you all, she was still an arm baby. She was not even walking at this time. She was to turn her candy over to give me some in my hand, and when she turned it over, it all spilled out on the ground. And Danielle just, oh my God, the hot tears just started flowing. And I'm just like, oh, I'm sorry. You want me to pick them up? You want me to do it? So I'm trying to introduce you to the ones that I've known for forever. But I want you all to know, because we have a gift that God wants us to share to the world, and this is what we're here to do. So Danielle is, we're talking about the youth, and I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to continue to talk because I want James to go on. We're going to talk a little bit about the youth and their thing, and it's all going to be scoped into this because they grew up with us as well at the house with Granddaddy and Grandma, but they didn't have the young Granddaddy and Grandma. And see, we had the young middle age Granddaddy and Grandma. They had the older age Grandma and Grandma. So we have the youth and their spirituality, and we really want to. My thing is, I don't really at this time, outside of my family, I don't know how to communicate with. And when I say youth, I mean from like 14, 16. Because at 14, you're trying to find out. You're going from that to preteen to prepubescent, blah, 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 blah. But I'd say from 16 to 25, I would say, and even younger. It just depends on how you grew up. but I don't know how to communicate with them. So that is, I may seem a little, and the thing that I hate is don't judge me. What does that mean, Danielle?
Don't judge me. That's kind of a hard one to tackle because that's kind of loaded.
Yeah.
I know that usually when I'm like, don't judge me, I'm typically kind of like, just take me as I am and don't try to analyze, don't try to like figure out what it is, don't try to like tell me how to do something, and just take me as I am and respect that and just let it be, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's kind of one way of thinking of it when someone says that, but I don't even think a lot of people know what that means when they do say it, honestly. I think they just kind of hear it and they just say whatever comes to their mind.
Because to me, it's just like they're saying that, but they don't want you to question them. And people, if you don't understand something, you have to. People have to ask questions. Is it that you don't know the answer, or just because you don't want to answer what we're asking you, or that you're just trying to be an adult now and let me be an adult? I'm really understanding that. And James is not too far from that, so he can give his little part in there too, James. I'm not leaving you out. So don't think that.
I mean, a lot of it I feel like is – oh, go ahead, James.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. I feel like a lot of it is that we are still trying to figure ourselves out. You know, like you said that you have a hard time trying to figure out how to talk to age group between 16 and 25, and it's like we spend so much of our time thinking about who we are, if we're doing the right thing, if we aren't doing the right thing, is this thing, what we're doing the next is going to be reckless, just, I mean, stuff like that. So it's kind of like, if you were to ask me a question, I'm going to be like, I don't know, like especially if it's a life question. Like I feel like a lot of the older generation to ask, well, what are you going to do with your life, or how do you feel about this, and this? And the question is, I don't know. I spent so much of my time, you know, with my parents who have kind of directed me in certain ways and have talked to me for certain ways. You know, like I remember going to the doctor and my parents are talking for me to the doctor about how I'm feeling about something. So it's kind of hard to answer questions sometimes when you're all like, well, what is this? And I'm like, I don't know, you told me, you know, because like you've talked to me for all my life almost in a way, you know.
I hadn't even thought about that. That's true.
Yeah, right. And I also think that's in my opinion, that's part of a problem in a sense, as far as us not recognizing the youth, or especially when I was growing up, you know, we always taught to do it this way, and there's pretty much no other way. If you went outside of that boundary, you would get in trouble. You would get whooped, you would get a spanking, whatever you want to call it. You know, you didn't have time to expand your mind. You were pretty much, you pretty much had to focus on what other people wanted you to focus on, instead of getting time to know who you are, or they getting time to know who you are. I think that's the biggest problem. They're not guiding you in the direction that you're moving. They're actually guiding you in the direction that they want you to go.
Exactly. And I mean, I even see that even now in education, because I work with special education right now as a teacher's aide, and I see that every day where they want you to sit there and be quiet and not say anything and just do your work. And it's one thing to tell a normal person that, but it's another thing to tell someone that has a disability to do that, because they obviously are thinking differently than everyone else, and everyone has their own mind. And when you aren't given that atmosphere to not necessarily, I mean, you need to speak your mind, but to explore what your mind can do, so to speak, then it's kind of, you know, unbeneficial for you. And you kind of grow up with a very, I guess you can say, sheltered mindset, because you haven't been exposed and you haven't had the place to explore what your mind can do.
Right.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And that's why I believe a lot of kids growing up between the ages of 16 and 25, they're constantly trying to find who they are, because they're getting that age where they, you know, a lot of kids are starting to get out the house, you know.
Right.
And so now you have, not only you don't know who you are, you have other influences that are pressed on you by your peers now. So now you're trying to figure yourself out. So especially in the black community itself, you have to have several different faces when you're walking around. When you go to work, you got to put on this face. When you're at home, you got to have a home face. When you're in the streets with the friends, you got to have a whole other mentality in all these different areas. And you know, and you never get a chance. That's exactly what it is. You have to shape shift everywhere you go, and you never get to feel yourself out or actually get to balance yourself because you have so many different extremes that you're jumping into everywhere that you go.
Exactly. So I mean that's something that I've definitely been exploring within the past year. Is just who am I, and what is it that I want, and where can I accept where I am in my life while I'm going through this process. I mean, it's just all those different things that kind of come up about, and it takes time to go through all of those things as well. You're not going to, figure it all out in, 12 hours. It's something that's going to take years and years and years. Who you are and what you think and what you want are going to change as you get older as well, know.
Right.
So that's probably
and that's true.
why you never get the answer you're looking for.
You're never going to find it, and I'm much older than you guys, and I'm still researching stuff. And I remember, but with our parents, and I think we have a different experience as even as black children, we have a different experience than most blacks. But we having a different experience, definitely, of my Caucasian friends that I had, and we never. It was sort of weird for us when we were talking about this. What is it called, James? When you're having to put a face on at work, and then you got to put a face on at school. You got to put a face on. What is that called? We were going to talk about that at the time.
Yeah, I don't know the exact term. Other than what you say, like shape shifting. It's just you have to totally change your personality everywhere that you go.
Exactly.
So I don't know
and
the
you really
exact term for
do.
that.
Yeah, and Tiffany, it's called code shifting. That's what they're calling it now. And I think that's. Oh, I'm sorry. What you say, Danielle?
Oh no, James was saying it was code shifting. He was just kind of reiterating what you were saying.
It's code shifting. Yeah. But I remember I was sort of myself with my friends. I was at school because really when I was in school, it was all about the teachers. If the teacher called and said that you weren't doing what you were supposed to be doing, that was it. You were going to have a problem. You had to have another face at church because if you even misspoke, because see, I have what Danielle doesn't know, and I'm sure James has gotten to know, that people say it's a curse, that I'm cursing. That's not what the Bible means as cursing. I have a propensity of cussing, and because I got it from my aunt, but she would say it so prolifically. She would say it in such a beautiful way, and it would just affect people. And I remember as a child thinking, that's what I want to do. I like that. And everybody, it was like E.F. Hutton when she started talking. Everybody listened, and I was just like, and I started. But I knew that my parents didn't want me to speak that way. But I just thought it was because she was an older person. And I remember the first time that I got called, I had to be like 4 or 5 years old, and Daddy had we had bought a bike, and you know how you go back then. You could go from what do they call the things that you put on your bike and the wheels, the extra wheels on there. You can go from that to
training wheels.
Training wheels. You can go from the training wheels to just learning to on the same bike. Now you got to go back and buy another bike, and you're doing good if it lasts that long. But I remember we had gone to my grandmother's house, and we had left, and I told my dad, I said, I left my bicycle. He said, oh, it'll be there. We'll go back and get it. When I got back, it was gone. I looked everywhere, couldn't find it, couldn't find my cousins. I knew they had it. Just in my mind, I just knew they had it. And we were sitting out there, and I didn't know my parents were still around. And I see them coming out the hill with my bicycle, like it was theirs. I was just like, there's my effing bike. And I've been looking for that and my Daddy walked up behind me. He said, okay. And I was just like, no, I mean, they stole my bike. I was trying to get out of it, trying to get something like that. But it's what people don't, getting back to the spiritual part of this, because that's really what we want to talk about, is that people don't know when the Bible says cursing, and if you really read your Bible and you really open your mind and just read it without somebody telling you what it is, cursing and cussing are totally different things. It's talking about I'm going to look at you and say, you ain't going to never be no, your mama was that way, your daddy was that way, you ain't going to never be about nothing. That's you cursing your child. That's you cursing someone. And you don't have a heaven or a hell to put them in. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, James.
Oh, no, I was just saying you're so right. I think that's one thing that I've heard from a lot of people is that they were either bullied or they were cursed into life or they were talked about so badly when they were younger that they just grew up thinking that they weren't really anything either.
Yeah, that's what they were. Yeah.
Listen to stories of like a lot of different celebrities and people that are successful. You know, it's kind of like the basis of their story is someone telling them, you know, that they're basically are crap. But it's like, at what point do you get to that level of spirituality where you don't believe that anymore and you actually do become something, you know?
Right.
That's kind of.
And you still have that in the back of your head. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You still have that in the back of your head because I was really quiet and people thought, I think they thought maybe, I think they pretty much thought I was a little special. And I say that in the nicest way, in love, and because I chose not to speak. Because every time I spoke, I didn't know what I was talking about until when it came to fruition that a child should not know X, Y, and Z, and I just stopped talking to them. And so I would get around people, but they would always say, "Oh, she's mean, she's this, that, and the other." And at first, I remember I had gone somewhere, and this woman told me, she says, "You're such a beautiful girl, and you're so sweet." And I said, in my head, I thought, "You don't know me very well," you know. And I remember thinking, why did I say that? You know what I'm saying? Because that was what I was being told over and over and over again when you didn't even try to get to know me. And that was a totally different generation. And so what James grew up with is one side of really the same coin, and then so did you. And then we try to. I can tell you, well, just bless your pea picking retarded heart. That doesn't make, you can't put sugar on S and try to make it be candy. It's not. It is what it is, and kids know this. And so that was my thing with the youth, because I'm seeing so many of us, and when I say us, I'm talking about African Americans, and because there are things, I think their parents aren't giving them what they need, because they're angry all the time. They don't know what to say, when to say it, how to say it. They don't know what the difference in right and wrong is. And then the thing is, I remember I was teaching Bible study here when I first got here. I'm in Lower Alabama. I'm in L.A. And I was talking to this little girl. We were talking about, I was trying to teach them we were trying to do a play. And it was Mary and Joseph, but it was on the way that I wanted it to be, but I wanted it to put it in a different tongue, but in the way that be truthful to what they said it was. And the little girl, I said, well, I want you to know about Mary and Joseph, you know, now that you've gotten your part. I said, and the little girl, she was like 11, 12 years old. And I said, you know, Mary was a virgin. I said they weren't allowed to cohabitate, to know each other, however you want to say it, in that time. And just as I said that, I said she was a virgin, and she said, a virgin? And I was just like, okay, maybe she don't know. I said, a virgin means that you, and I'm trying to say it in a very delicate way, but she was just like, I ain't a virgin. I said, do you know what a virgin is? Oh, she knew what it was. I ain't been a virgin for a long time. And I'm just like, you are 12 years old. And I'm thinking, what the hell? What are their parents telling them? Well, then I had to think, they don't have parents. They have a parent, you know, and they're working, but no one has taught them to, to appreciate their bodies, that you're worth something. And we were sitting there and I was talking to somebody the other day, and she said something, and I said, you know what? I said, I'm not one to sleep around. I don't believe in that. And I said, people don't believe that I haven't done X, Y, and Z. I said, when I got to college, I had not done anything. I thought everybody lived like that. Until the girls I got to school with, they were telling me stuff that I hadn't even heard or seen with my parents and stuff. And I was just like, oh my God. But you see this, and the generation, and we say this, I say that, and it just came back to me because the Bible said they're getting wiser and weaker. And do you see that because you were raised, you and James were raised in a different manner than I was raised, because you were to be, we were told you were to be seen and not heard, and they meant that.
Yeah.
But you all had
absolutely.
a little bit. Yeah. Say that again.
I was like, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very strong, powerful way to put it, that we are getting wiser, we're getting weaker, and there's different senses of that, and I'm going to try really hard to make sense of that really quickly. But I think in a sense of we are wiser in knowing that we want to be successful and knowing what we want, and it depends on what kind of crowd you hang around. So I associate myself with a crowd that wants to grow personally and spiritually, and that does certain things that positively promotes their spirit. But I also have hung out and talked with people that aren't doing those things. It is not necessarily that they don't want to. It's just because they don't know how, maybe, or any other factors that's kind of going into their life to where they aren't able to. And so in a sense, I mean, I think that we are a very sensitive generation. I mean, we kind of, and plus we've kind of grown up where, I'm trying to think of how to put it, we were told we can have whatever we want, do whatever we want, blah, 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 blah. And now that we're older and we're like getting into our 20s, it's like, oh, well, that takes a lot of work. You know?
Yes.
Right.
And if you say the wrong word, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to cry about it, and my life is ending. And it's like we have such high expectations of what we thought our life was going to be that it hurts a little bit to kind of have to rethink and reprioritize and actually be like, oh, this is life, and this is not how life is going to be. Like, we can't be anything that
reality.
We want, a lot of work. Right. So I think it's in a sense of being young and having this aspect that we can be anything and do anything, but at the same time, like, not being able to handle the criticism. It's like we're getting wiser, but we're also getting weaker. And that's where I think that spirituality needs to come, where, like, we really need to kind of sit down and come within ourselves, you know, and think about who we are and what's important to us, and at least come up with some type of idea of how we can stay spiritually at peace while we're going through that process of becoming stronger, I guess.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes
that makes
Go
sense.
ahead,
So Danielle, what do you think? Because I also I believe that kids the younger kids might have a chance to listen to this. So what do you think that you would have done differently growing up, or what do you think that should have been done differently in order to kind of build, I want to say, that self-esteem, not just self-esteem, but kind of learning how to take the blows of life that you're going through right now? What do you think could have been done if you were a younger child?
I believe that sitting down and actually having a conversation with your kids versus, like, kind of talking at your kids is one of the bigger things. Like, actually sitting down and showing them how to do certain things and walking them through, teaching them certain things. I feel like a lot of times, like, parents miss, like, teachable moments, you know? And it's like when they yell at them versus telling them what, who, when, why, you know? And I guess with certain kids you kind of have that, because certain kids that's what they respond to. But then we think, you know, they're only respond to that because that's what they've learned since they were younger, you know, since they were able to even, you know, mimic what you were doing, you know?
Right.
So I think that's one thing. Like, I feel like my parents did teach me a lot, but I'm also a very observant learner. Like, I learn by watching people do things. But certain people don't learn that way. Certain people you have to legit, like, sit down and show them and then let them do it on their own, you know?
Exactly.
So I feel like that's one thing that's a big thing. Also, I feel like you have to be able to, and that's something I'm struggling with now after my mom was passing, is being able to listen to what your kids have to say and respect what they have to say, and but also being able to like take what they say and give them some feedback on it, respectfully.
Yeah.
You know, versus just saying, oh, well, this is just how it's going to be and we're just going to move on from it. We're never going to talk about it ever again, you know?
Exactly.
And I feel like, you know, when you don't address certain issues, that creates bigger problems within, because it's like, well, is this not important? You know? Like, I'm struggling deeply with this, but is it not important because you don't want to talk about it? You know, like, is talking about the hard stuff something that, you know, you're not strong enough to do, and that's okay if you're not, but at least relay that message to me, right? So I think communication is really like has always been going to be my biggest thing. Communication and being able to lead through your experiences, so to speak. You know.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's
I think.
probably like my
and I agree with you totally. And listening to what you're saying, I think that is also an issue in our community. It's kind of like it's the blind leading the blind. So when you're going through certain situations as a kid, there's a huge possibility, especially in our generation now, at this age of information that we're going through, that our parents did not go through growing up anyway. There's a huge margin right there of information that your parents just do not know. All right.
Right.
And because they do not know, is they fear the information that's coming at them. So I can tell you that now. My mom still does it today. You know, like she doesn't want to talk about things that she doesn't know about. You know, and she'll just totally shut it off. And I think it's because they don't know this information, for one. But they want to keep themselves in this light of being your sole provider, even when it comes to information. So when you bring in the new information like that, they don't want to hear it. And since they can't tell you anything about it, they're going to shut down totally and be like, no, this is what I said, this is what I know. Go to your room, whatever. So I believe we have to get to a point that when our kids speak about things, you do need to have that sit-down conversation with them so you can have a better understanding instead of just shutting it down or just totally shutting it off. I don't think that's going to be much of a problem nowadays, especially with people having kids at a much younger age. I don't think that's going to be a huge problem. I mean, we have other issues that we have to worry about pertaining to that. But I know I had that same issue growing up. And I believe my mom, when she was growing up, she probably had similar issues where, you know, you do it or shut up. Don't talk to me about it, you know. So,
right. And, you know, I didn't even think about it that way. And that just kind of makes me also think about the fact that we are a generation of technology, and we do have mobile devices that can give us information at any point in time. So that does, you know, and a lot of the older generation doesn't really know how to use the, you know, stuff that we have now, you know.
But some of it I don't want them to know. Because I was afraid when Mother told me she had a computer and she was online. I was just like, oh, my God, no. I said, Mom, that's not something you need to be doing. I mean, seriously, I put every mechanism on her computer so that she wouldn't get involved in something that she didn't need to be seeing. You know what I'm saying? But she was strong enough to handle it. But I was trying to shield her from it.
Yeah, and that's your fear, you know, and that fear goes both ways too. And, you know, you can't be afraid to talk to your parents about certain things, you know, because everything under the sun has been done before, in a sense, you know. So you have to relay these messages because there's just certain nuances about certain things that have never changed, you know. It's just a different way of going about doing it. You know, and this communication has to open up between both sides because we're going to be lost when it comes down to it.
Yes. And I agree, and that's true. And my thing is when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to knowing that there is a creator and there's one that's above all. I find that a lot of the teenagers are not there. They're, we got mad at my mom because she took us to see what you all didn't go to is what we went through. We went to church every single day. I mean, the only day we didn't go to church was on a Friday, and then we had choir rehearsal, and then if you were on the usher board, then Saturday you were there for the ushers, and then Sunday, then you had to be at church, and it was just, and you did not have that option. And I can see that because I got that foundation, and I can't get it, I can't, what is the word? I can't negate that. I can't say that I didn't get that foundation, but I'm looking at the younger generation, and they're looking because the stuff that they were teaching us then, I could say perhaps they really didn't know any better. But now it's just gotten to the point where they're just trying to make everybody feel good and make everybody come back to church so they can take up an offering. And that's what I'm seeing from it. Every church is not like that, because I've gone to some churches that they're really teaching. Because God said, you water, you plant, and one waters. He said, but only I add the increase. And we have to realize that. But you have to have your mind open to see other things. And I remember, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to let you guys talk. And I remember when I was in Dallas once, and I was doing some really heavy studying because I was asking God some really serious questions, because I was at a point where I was just like, Lord, I had gone from going to church all the time to saying, this is not who I knew you to be, because I knew who God was through my grandmother. And it wasn't a question in it. So it was a totally different experience when I started dealing with people, and I found that a lot of people were, how do I say this? I can only say it the way it is. They were faking it. They were just faking it, and they'll say it now. You fake it till you make it. You can't fake stuff and then grow. You can't pretend you're growing. You got to know that you're growing. And the only way that you know you're growing is to assess yourself. And it's like almost like a game. And this is not a game. Because when it's all said and done, everything that you do today is going to come back to you tomorrow. It may be tomorrow, it may be several tomorrows, it may be, but it's going to come back to you, and it's going to come back harder than it did when it went out. So you have to always, I don't care whether you deem yourself as a Christian or high spirituality, you know what you're doing. If you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, then you need to ask yourself some questions. And I'm saying this because the young people, I'm finding that it's just like they don't even know what questions to ask, because people have been playing such a game, and they're seeing this and they deem it as you're faking. So how do you all combat that? Because I know I wasn't the only one who saw it. If it happened then, it's happening now. Yeah, go ahead.
You mean combat that other people are faking, or to combat?
Yeah. But when you go to church and they're telling you that this is who God is, and blah blah blah, because we have not even scratched the surface of what God is, and we think that we get it. And people say, I just want them 66 books. Boo boo. Stop. There's more out there than that. Don't do that. But it's what I saw, what I started asking God about was, they're telling you that God owns cattle on 1,000 hills, and you don't have to worry about He's going to prepare, He's going to give you your every need, and He's going to do blah, 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 blah. And then they would get up, and they would, they called it testifying. I don't know whether you all did that then. And they would get up, and they would talk about, I don't know whether my electricity is going to be on tomorrow, but I'm just sick because the devil is after me, and I'm sick, and I was in nursing school before I graduated high school, because my parents wouldn't let me graduate high school early, because they thought they would just, and probably it did, because I found out that I was a lot younger than what I thought I was. And so you have that, and I'm just like, Lord, why are they getting up here and they telling us this X, Y, and Z, and they come back with PDQ. And I'm just like, how are you saying that God owns cattle on 1,000 hills and that he is your God, which the Bible never tells you is your God. He is our God. And that was the problem. That was one of the problems. And then you're going to get up and then you're going to say the devil is doing X, Y, and Z to you. Okay, God, you're going to have to show me that you're real, because I don't know that you're real. And I don't know who I thought I was talking to when I was asking him, so I had to know he was real. But I want you to show me something bigger than that. Really, that's what it basically was. And so in your generation, because I would think that it would have gotten worse in your generation than it was in my generation. So what do you all do when you come across somebody who is at the foot of the cross today, Sunday, and Wednesday, and they're the Satan himself any other day?
I feel like me personally, that's between him and God, honestly. Because, I mean, at that point, that's for him and God to work out. I don't try to insert myself in the situation. I haven't honestly, paid that close attention to recognize it or anything like that. Right. But I can tell when someone says, oh, I'm a good person, but they're still doing, crazy stuff that kind of contradicts themselves, and, I might try to call them out on that. But other than that, I mean, because you never know what someone is going through. You never know what someone's processing. So as far as, faking it till you make it, I mean, maybe it's not necessarily them faking it till they make it. Maybe it's more of them, their way of processing or going through their steps to get to where they need to be.
Right.
So that's just my way of seeing it, because I always choose to see things in a positive light more so than a negative light, and so that's just kind of how I kind of walk through life, so to speak.
Right.
I think, in my personal opinion, people fake it till they make it, because maybe what they have been shown and what they're trying is not working for them to the degree that they thought it was working for them or supposed to work for them.
Right.
And I mean, you know how I am with spirituality myself. Me personally, I'm not much of a church goer at all, but and I believe in trying to find God within yourself and trying to find God with everything that's around you. So I think people go through life like that because they're always looking for something to reach out and help them. You have to realize that this life itself is the ultimate gift, in my opinion. This life, living this physical existence, is this ultimate gift. And when you don't utilize that, that's when you run into the most problems. So when you're always looking for a handout, right, and not willing to even do for yourself, that's when your problems start to arise. So people, just like you said, a person will be like, oh, I hope this bill gets paid. On that other note, they're not thinking of, what can I do to get this paid? Or maybe they're not praying on and asking what can they do to get that bill paid. They're not using their resources. And I think that's
and
a
sometimes
big
they're not
thing.
aware of their resources.
Yeah, they're not, but it's not going to be who are they going to reach out to get this stuff? You know what I'm saying? And that's not, and those are the questions that they're not asking. What you might not know the resources, but especially in today's age, there's definitely something out there that you can find. You can Google damn near anything and find out how to do it. So we're in an age where there's really no excuse for you not to find answers, because there's so much information all around you right now. So when I hear people that's like that, and I listen to a lot of entrepreneurs and stuff like that as well. Who are people who are trying to be successful, and they'll tell you, even back in the day, when you read what's the name of the book, Think and Grow Rich, is a really good book to read. I think that book was made in the 1940s or something like that. But there's always ways to get it done. You just have to work for it. And I think people are afraid to work for the things that they want.
That's what I
You can't always reach out and look for a handout. Yeah, absolutely. Pray. Pray to God. That's what you have to do. Pray to God, but don't pray to God and sit there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You have to pray also put the work in, right?
Right. You have to put that work in as well. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was sitting there when you said that. I thought about that because I had to teach myself that it wasn't because when I grew up, I can't tell you about the churches now because I very seldom, when I go to church, I'm going to church to take something. I'm not going to church to get something. I'm not waiting for you to give me the word. If you don't give it right, then I'm going to know that you didn't do it, and I'm not going back there anymore. But I had to ask God and ask myself. A lot of this was I had the money. Like now, if I don't have the money to do what I want to do with it, or I know that I have X, Y, Z money coming in. I know I got a cable bill, I got electricity bill, I got water bill, I've got this bill, and so I pay those off first or make arrangements for them. But I try to just go ahead and pay them off because by the time they pay you interest, you could have done something else with it. But I try to do that and then survive off of what I have left. And know that God, because I have done what I did find out was when I had lots and lots of money, when I was going in and out the country, and I had that import-export business. And I say this, I don't say this to brag, and I hope no one thinks it like that. I can only tell you about what I've experienced. So this is what I'm talking about. And I remember I had money, and I didn't know what to do with it. And every time I got money, I felt guilty. And I was just like, I should be helping somebody. You know, God didn't give me this for me to sit up on it. And then it got to the point, it went from there for me asking God, what is it that you want me to do? Or should I do this? And should I do blah, blah, blah? Everything that's made available to you is not the right thing for you to do. And I remember thinking, I started going to bed trying to figure out where I was going to take the money, where I was going to. I spent buku money. I was at Saks every day, and I wasn't going there on the sales rack. I was going there buying stuff off the rack, not even asking anything. I'm gonna pick this, and this. I'll go online and say, I want this dress and this dress. Can you deliver it to my house? And that's wasteful. I see that now. But then I thought I was at the top of the world. But then I had that thing in the middle of me. It was like, well, where's God? I thought I was there, but I had stopped asking with God. And then I started feeling hollow. And money is not, that's where we are now is we think money is everything, but this is something that man made up. When I went over to Africa, I was looking and I'm just like, they have everything that they need right here. Why is it? But when they got their independence from England and from Belgium and from wherever the countries that were France and all this stuff, that they were just like, oh, you're gonna not be a slave anymore? You're not gonna do what I tell you to do? I guess what? We're gonna make what you got worth nothing. We're gonna make it so that you can't even trade with anybody. And that's what they have done. And so the only way that for you to get over this is to be tapped in to God. Not what they're teaching you, what somebody told you at church. It's that relationship that you have with God. I mean, I have been to places that 2 weeks after I was there, because I was on the news when I had come back home, and I was watching the news, and these people, they were like, they were Caucasians. They were from another country. I think they were from England, and one of them was from France and whatever. And they were there, and I was just like, that looks familiar. I was there. And they had been killed in that very same spot. And it wasn't no just, I'm going to shoot you and leave you dead. They were tortured, because they had people They didn't know what they went into something they didn't know what they were getting into. I went there with God on my mind, and I went there and I saw God there. But we get and I'm going to bring this up again. Kanye West said truth, that if he never says the truth again, he said that they make you love their wealth and hate yourself. And if you see people with melanin in their skin, all of them, they have gotten to the point where they hate themselves. Oh, I need to have blonde hair. Well, the ones who have blonde hair aren't blonde hair and don't have blonde hair. They've bleached it. They've done this, that, and the other. Why can't you appreciate what God gave you? And I say that because I was looking at this little girl on Dr. Phil's show the other day. 3 shades darker than I was. Did you see that?
I saw about. Sorry, go ahead. But I saw the video floating around about the girl that was she's like, I am white. I believe I'm white. And it was a little black girl, and she had long straight black hair. And I was like,
she straightened her hair.
How do we get to this point?
That's what I was saying. I was I didn't know that we were still there. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, it hasn't. That point hasn't left, because in our communities, or what we want to call our communities, everywhere we go, and I'll just say it blatantly, everywhere that you see Caucasians or white people, right?
Yeah.
You always have the black class at the very bottom. Everywhere you go.
Yes, everywhere.
So it's because they set up this system, right? And it doesn't even have to be a righteous system, but a system that always keeps them.
It's not a righteous system.
On a top tier, right?
Right.
So people are trying to get to this point where you could just live life freely, right? Because and imagery plays a huge part, especially. I want to get back to directing this towards the youth too, but especially towards the youth, and when it comes to music, when it comes to television, all that stuff depicts the exact same things. So they're always showing us either as thugs, and now it's at the point where they're always showing us as like homosexuals, and like almost every show I see either a black couple or maybe a black man with a white guy being in this homosexual state. So
right.
But all that stuff plays a huge part. Imagery goes a very, very long way. Like and I'm about to go to Africa here soon, probably within the next 4 or 5 months or so. But when we were growing up as kids, anytime that I seen anything about Africa, it was always these skinny kids with their stomachs poking out with flies all over their face. Right?
Yeah. Right.
So that imagery goes a long way. So now, me growing up, one of the first things I'm thinking is, I don't ever want to go to Africa, right? I don't want to go there to deal with that. On top of that, you're being told, hey, you are from Africa, and now because you're here, your life is a lot better. Right, because that's the main message that you're going to get when you're looking at that stuff. And then people that are in Africa, when they look at the Black Americans or African Americans here, all they see is thugs, gangs, or whatever. So their whole mindset is, I want to go to the land of the free, but I don't want to associate myself with black people over there.
Exactly.
Because they're all thugs and vicious, they're dumb, So this imagery is one of the things that I believe that has to be changed. Again, with this age that we're in, we have the ability to choose what we want to see. And, YouTube is big for that. They got all these different streaming networks that you could use, that you can kind of really zone in on what you prefer to see. Because I know I don't watch TV just because of that, because of all the imagery that they have going on. Because it doesn't make me feel good about myself. So
Right.
As far as and I'll direct this at Danielle, like how do you feel about that when you were growing up? Do you think that had like music and movies and stuff like that? Did that have a big effect on you and who you are today?
Well, you guys know that I actually went to Spain Park, which is a majority white school.
Yep.
And so growing up around the majority white, I mean, I definitely have acquired some of the, I guess, white attributes, the white characteristics as far as how I speak, how I carry myself, all those different types of things. So it's interesting that you brought that up. So for me, being pictured throughout the Black community is, oh, I'm an Oreo, or I am this Black girl that's trying to be white. And that's very difficult for me because it's like I don't ever want to be associated with, trying to be a white person, But then I also have to think that, like, the certain things that have been attributed to me as far as, like, being able to go to Stanford and get a good job. And every time I go somewhere, I've never gone without, so to speak. It's because of, where my parents have placed me and the way I've grown up. So it's kind of hard for me to speak on, I guess, Black youthfulness, so to speak, because there are certain aspects of that I have never had to experience because of my parents. Not like in a bad way, but just in the sense of they, did the best that they could.
But
so do you have to experience those hardships?
But not seeing yourself in things, always being portrayed, every portrait of doing well or trying to get, and they have a white face there. Did that affect your Blackness? Did it affect the way you looked at yourself?
It did when I was younger. I feel like I've always wanted to have straight hair, and I've always wanted to do certain things that my other counterparts were doing.
Right.
I think it took a long time to kind of get over that hump and kind of be true within myself. And I mean, even up until recently, so to speak, and even like with my mom, and like my mom would say certain things like, "Don't tell them like that you came from certain places because you don't want them to perceive you as this way." So even like my mom had this certain thing of, you're with these types of people and you need to act a certain type of way. So yeah, in a sense it did. But I had to kind of grow out of that and do a lot of like soul searching with that. And now I wear my hair natural, and like no one can tell me not to wear my hair natural. And with me wearing my hair natural, I'm sorry if I'm going a little off topic here, but with me wearing my hair natural, I kind of, and talking to other Black people, I can see where they're uncomfortable with themselves being Black as well, because they're trying to tell me that I should wear my hair straight. Like just little things like that. And it's like I'm super comfortable with who I am now, and I acknowledge, where I'm lacking and what I know and what I don't know, and that's okay.
Right. That's good. That's I think that's a very powerful thing. What you're doing, because even when I'm at work, I have my hair locked up, and so. And I work in a facility where there's a lot of government people and government contractors. So even for a while, when I first started locking my hair up, I was uncomfortable a little bit because the way people would look at me, especially Black people, the way they would look at me.
Yes, that was the biggest thing.
Yeah, because I'm not fitting their mold of of what somebody should be looking like.
What the white people told them that they needed to be.
Exactly, in this atmosphere,
That runs very, very deep. That's not something that's been, within the past day. I mean, I think that people are more aware of it now because we are making them aware of it, with the hair movement and with, everything that's transpired is trying to get us to where we need to be. But I feel like at the same time, like, people need to be more open and more comfortable with themselves to even explore that. If you're not open-minded, there's no way for us to even move forward.
And I think it's definitely true.
Yeah,
and I was sitting here definitely thinking, true. Go ahead.
I wanted to finish hearing your story about how you felt.
No, just like Danielle just said, and I had to grow to realize it too. It's really a reflection of how they feel about themselves at the end of the day. When they come at you like that, when they're looking at you like that, most of the time it's because they feel like they can't do it. You know, they can't. They are not free enough within themselves to just let it go like that and to fully feel what it's like to be yourself. Yeah, but go ahead.
Right. No, I was when she said that. This is something, and that's why I'm glad that you're around your brother's kids so that they can see, that it's okay. And it's all right to speak English, speak proper English, but it doesn't matter where you are. I remember I was at college, and I had, because I went to a predominantly white school, it was sort of, when I went to college, and there were lots of blacks there, and I hate to say that, but I was stigmatized. I didn't know I had white friends, and I had people that I had white people that I associated with at the college, and then I had black people that I had associated with. And I remember walking into the lunchroom, and then my white friends were saying, "Hey, girl, how you doing? Come on over here, come over here." And then on the other side, my black friends, and they were all separate. Nobody was together. And I'm just like, oh, my God. And you know what I did? I just went out there and sat on the patio. You want to come? Y'all come. I'm not doing that. It frightened me. I'm being honest with you. I was very, very afraid. And a long time, I was afraid of black people. Because what I had encountered was a lot of anger and a lot of wanting to fight, because I remember once I went to school and everything was, I remember when I got to college, I cut my hair off. And then, but my mom was just like, "What are you if you don't have your hair?" And I remember that just hurt my feelings so bad. But that was why I cut it off, because everything I did surrounded my hair. And I remember I had it, and Rose had pressed it, and it was really, really long. And my mom had never allowed me to wear my hair down. And so she let me wear my hair down, because I had washed it, and, it locked up. Oh, Lord have mercy. I went to sleep, and I was just like, because I was going to wash it, and I'm very tender-headed. And I was just like, oh, God, I can't do this. So what I did was I went to sleep, and I said, I'll comb it in the morning. No, didn't happen. I couldn't even get the comb through it. And I was sitting there, and I remember my dad was just like, where you going? And he didn't say it nasty, but I could look at his face to tell I was jacked up. And I was just like, she said, well, what I'm going to do is, because my mom was in the hospital, I'm gonna send you down to Aunt Rose's house so she can press your hair. And I remember thinking, I'm just looking rough, but I went to school with my hair down. I'm telling you, the black girls, when Danielle said that they were calling her Oreo, and I'm just like, still today they're doing the Oreo shit? Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. And,
I catch it for you. I still catch it. I catch it almost once a week.
Yeah. And I'm just like, but they were running their hairs through my, and is that a wig? I know that's a wig. And one girl snatched my hair, and I just like, and I got up and I moved, and that stuck with me for forever. They wanted to fight me because they said I was being white, and they've always told me that. But when I wore my hair down, it was over. It was over. But, hey, there's only 3-4 black people here. What the devil are you talking about? And so my friends were, because Caucasians will take you the way you are. They ain't going to try to make you no better. They're going to take you just the way you are right there. And so it was very, very difficult for me. And I remember when I met Jeffrey, he scared me. Because I didn't know, because I said I wasn't gonna get with anybody. I wasn't gonna have sex with anybody. It was gonna be what I said, when I said, how I said it, where I said it. I wasn't gonna do. I remember I went out with some guy, and he went to kiss me, and I was in college, because they did not allow, my parents did not allow me to date. Now, I don't know what you did with your mom, but I was just like that experiment in the middle or something. And I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything. And I remember I was at college, and it was the first time that I had really been alone with a man outside of my dad. And he literally almost raped me. And I remember getting really scared because he had his hand on my mouth, and he was holding me down, and I could not move. And I tell you all, I could not move. And I remember I went from one side to the next side, and I got my knee up, and I hit him in the nether regions. That's another word. That's a better word. And that was the only way I got out. And then he had the audacity to get mad at me because I said no. And I remember, and that affected me for forever. I'm just like, black men are too, I don't like that, you know. But then I was afraid of the white guys, and I've dated white guys, never. I think that they held my hand. I met a guy at college from Kosovo. I met a guy from Russia. I met guys from Germany. But it wasn't there for me. But it was just that thing. And then we have to learn to teach our men, but you can't teach your men a certain way because the mama's got to be involved, but the daddy's got to be involved too. And I find that was, how you say, I was taken aback by that. I was taken aback by the whole thing. It took me a bit until I really went to Africa and I really met Jeffrey. That is when all the foolishness, my eyes, it's like scales just fell off my eyes. And so I'm listening to you all talk about that, and I'm going through my experience as well, because all my friends were Caucasian, you know. All my and the ones that were black there were busy calling you an Oreo, calling you this, that, and the other. So that made you put arms linked up at them, you know.
Right.
Right.
That was my story.
Right.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Did you want to speak, Danielle?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So in our community, we have to realize that people come from all walks of life.
Yes.
And really we need everybody to make this community better as a whole.
Right.
We need people that are in school. We need people who we might consider nerds or whatever, right? We need that part in our community instead of blasting people who are obviously trying to do better for themselves, or just different,
right.
You know, or just plain different. There shouldn't be, because if you go to anybody else's community, you're not going to see that. You go to the Asian community, you're not going to see that at all. Everybody is accepted for who they are. You know, you go there, they be like, if you need something done on a computer, they got a guy that works on computers that they can send you to. It's not going to be somebody that's just exiled or feel like they don't belong in the community just because they think differently.
Right.
We have to accept everybody, because within our culture, we have a different variety. I'm trying to think of a different word to use, not just variety.
But we have different walks of life. We have different people like different things, and people feel like, I grew up in a certain way. Our parents, we had to speak a certain way. If we didn't know what a word meant, we would say, "Dad, what does that mean?" You have a dictionary over there, and you have encyclopedias. Go and look it up. You know, that was.
So,
you know, that was.
Let me ask this question. So we can definitely sit here and we can say, let's that we need to come better as a community, but is there any ideas that we can come up with that would that go along with that? And is there any type of spiritual references or anything that we could use so that we can have these conversations with people that we congregate with?
A lot of it is having a relationship with God. God gave us certain rules and telling us how to treat people and what to do and how to do it. But then you have to have that spiritual connection. It's something that's past some people's understanding. You have to allow yourself for God, for the Holy Spirit just to come into you. And it's not you being spooky. We talk about that all the time. It's not you being spooky. It's not you falling all over church. It's not the man being weak, because that was my thing with Jeffrey. I didn't ever want him to come to the U.S. I didn't ever want him to be a part of the church that I was in. I felt like the men didn't do what they were supposed to do. But a lot of it is just being realistic. I'm not gonna get with James and think I'm gonna rub my hair through his hair, my hand through his hair, and think it's gonna be silky straight. So, I mean, I hear people say that all the time. That silky hair, and I'm just like, silky straight hair. Then who are you talking about? Because you ain't talking about me.
Right.
I mean, it may get silky and straight when I flat iron it and destroying my hair every time I do it. But it's just, I think having God in your life will dissipate a lot of the things that we have, and being able to be realistic with one another, and that everybody's not going to be my best friend, but I can respect you.
Right.
For who and what you are.
Exactly. I agree with all of that.
Yeah.
I definitely, the issue I think that I have with my, not necessarily my generation, I just have a couple of friends that will say that they're more spiritual than they are godly, or they're more into being spiritual than where they are religion. And I think that's totally fine as long as you're envisioning spirituality as a positive embodiment of who you are and who you're trying to be.
Right.
Do y'all have any
your spirituality
issues with?
Needs to be tied up with God, though, with a higher being, to the Creator. Yeah.
Yeah, but
go ahead, James.
But with that, because you're saying it has to be with God. There's people that worship different gods out here in this world. So when you're saying that,
they call them different gods,
course,
different names.
Well, you call them different names, but they also have different attributes as far as what a lot of people might know. So, so Danielle, are you talking about as a community, or as far as what?
So I would love to hear as far as a community, as far as the Black community, and I would love to hear. Do y'all think that's an issue for our youth community? Do you think they're being being too spiritual versus being less godlike?
Or religious,
I think that has
religious minded.
I think there has to be a good.
Can I end this, because we've been on here for an hour, and I want to continue this next week, and because that's something that we don't need to brush past. We need to get into that conversation and really say what it is that you felt as a youth, and then go into where we need to be as the youth, where the parents need to be, where the men need to be. We need to talk about that. And so I am appreciative that Danielle came on there. We're gonna have to have you on more often, Danielle, to get another aspect. And so, what can we go into this a little bit further next week, James?
Yeah, absolutely.
Danielle?
We could do that.
Absolutely. I'm definitely available on Sundays.
Okay. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna end by a prayer, and that James had a really. I want to thank God thank our Creator, our Holy One, the one who is and was and is to come. I want to thank him for everything that he's done, everything he's put in my life, everything that he's kept me from. That's detrimental. I thank you, Lord. I come before you thanking you and praising you and lifting you up because you are holy, holy, holy. And we end this conversation, Lord, and thanking you for allowing us to get together and have this dialogue and for us to get together and put this out there. And we thank you and we love you and we end on this thing for everybody when they leave, that they're all blessed and that they have you in their minds, in their hearts, and in their soul. And so we say thank you and amen. And I will turn it over because I'm a big talker. I'm going to let Danielle end with her saying, and then let James end the conversation, the dialogue.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to start by saying thank you so much for having me on today. I really hope that I gave a interesting perspective on the youth, and I hope that we get to continue this next week as well. And it was great to hear all you guys talk today.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate you coming.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate your point of being. I'm sorry, James. Go ahead. You know me. You know me. You know.
Yeah. Thank you, Danielle, for joining us today, man. I really appreciate your input. I think your voice is needed, especially towards a younger crowd, because really that's what I'm about, is bridging the gap so we can all have a better understanding of who we are and, just eventually come together. So write that question down, Danielle. Write that question down for next time, and I'm going to, invite you into our notes and stuff like that so you can write it down in there. And I think it'll be good if you try to spearhead this next one. And so write down the questions that you want to ask, and we can kind of flow off of what you want from there, so we can get a better understanding from the youth side. All right. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to say, in this life we are taught many things, but I challenge you to find what matters most, and that is Gnosis. Know your past so you can operate in the present to secure the future that you always dreamed of. And I thank and love everybody.
Amen. I praise God. And we say, I do. Good night.